People who learned English as a second language, what's the craziest thing someone has said to you assuming you didn't understand them? Please subscribe, leave a like, comment and share the video to help the channel. Not me, but a coworker who wasn't a part of a particular department decided for himself that the Latina women don't know any English and would visit them solely to call them derogatory names and curse them out. Well, they all understood what was being said and some started crying because why was this man saying all these rude things to them? The dude didn't even get fired, he was put in the dish room and continues to be problematic. Grew up bilingual as an American-born citizen with a very foreign name. When I was 13, we had a house fire and ended up moving to a new school district rather suddenly. My mom took me to enroll in my new middle school. After a brief conversation with my mom, the secretary turned to me and asked, in the slowest, most condescending voice ever, "How good is your English?" I answered back using her same tone and speed, "Pretty good." She missed the joke and marked me down for the English as a second language program. I was pulled from my regular English class multiple times throughout the first semester so that I could attend this program. It took a lot of convincing before they finally realized their mistake and let me remain in my regular class. Edit, thank you for my first silver, kind stranger. I witnessed a similar situation with my dad when I was about 12 years old. We were leaving the mosque in my hometown in Canada during Eid prayer, so my dad was wearing traditional Pakistani clothing. There just so happened to be a municipal election going on at the time, and candidates were outside the mosque campaigning. One woman went up to my dad and said very slowly and condescendingly, "Do you speak English?" My dad had lived in Canada for almost a decade, went to med school in the United States, and boarding school in the UK. He's been speaking English for most of his life, and he's a Canadian citizen. He replied, quickly, like he was in a rush, "Are you alright? You're speaking kind of slowly. I'm a doctor, I can take a look." I've never seen anyone slunk away so embarrassed before or since. I'm an English speaking Canadian and worked as a server at a dining room in Scotland for a while after university. Most of my co-workers were from Spain or South Africa, while most of the kitchen staff were Scottish. The Spanish guys didn't speak very good English when they first started working, so the kitchen staff would call them names and tell them to go back where they came from. Just really racist stuff. I never got treated like that, and neither did anyone else who could speak English well. One day I'm sitting with these Spanish guys who worked their asses off to learn English for months, and they asked me what the word "speg" meant. I was shocked, but I told them. Then a few days later, we are all in the staff cafeteria and the kitchen staff are being racist assholes again about the Spanish. So my one Spanish friend, who had learned a ton of English, but was still not fluent, and had a heavy accent, confronts an entire table of those cowardly Scottish fuckers. Tells them they're racist, tells them to cut the shit, tells them they're only talking shit about the Spanish because they think they're not being understood, and then walks away. I was so proud of him. It took tons of courage to confront a whole table of bullies in a language they are just learning. In the end, the kitchen staff backed down, just like they did to us English-speaking foreigners. It was amazing. We were in some international math competition, me and my friend overheard someone said, "Come on man, we can't lose to those Chinese dogs, we're Singaporeans BTW." Then we looked at each other and clicked and started barking at each other, mayo the look on their faces. My first language is Polish, but I speak fluent English. I've lived in the UK for a while and people can't usually work out where I'm from. It was one of those chilled Fridays at work and two cleaners came to our office to vacuum. Both of them were Polish. One of them started talking about her baby boy and how he shitted all over her car. After a few minutes I turn around and say, "Oh, that's a horrible story," in Polish. They didn't laugh, and we haven't had the office vacuumed in a few weeks. I should shut the fuck up. It's not quite what you're asking for, but here it is anyway. My first language is English, my second language is Japanese, and I live in Japan. Anyway, this happened almost 2 years ago. I'm at the airport with my husband to pick my parents up. They flew in from America for the birth of their first grandchild. I was heavily pregnant, had my baby the next morning. I'm also very clearly not Japanese. So we are walking down a hall towards some elevators and a group of young Japanese guys walk past us in the opposite direction. And I overhear one of them say, "Wow, she's really fat," and his friend replied, "She's pregnant, you idiot." And I couldn't help but laugh out loud. I mean, they were both right. That Japanese McDonald's is legit. I'm bilingual and English is not my native language as well, but a friend of mine, who is half Greek, half Filipino, went through something you could be describing. She culturally leans more towards her Filipino counterpart, but has very European features. When she went to the Philippines on vacation, this group of grown men was drinking on the streets and saw her. Basically, they were actively discussing kidnapping her and holding her for ransom in Tagalog because she was a white foreigner right in front of her face. She didn't respond or try to cut back at them. I mean, I sure as hell wouldn't if I were her, and just remained close to the people she was with during the trip. Last year I was in China with some friends. One of them is a very tall, very thin, black American who happens to speak near perfect Chinese because he's been living in Shanghai for a long time. He told me that there once were these two Chinese girls walking next to him, giving him weird looks and chatting about how tall, strong and foreign he was. Eventually he just turned to them and said, "I can understand you," and they immediately turned bright red in the face and tried their best to sink into the ground. Lol. The other funny thing was, when we were in the Forbidden City and a Chinese guy in front of us was trying to read the Manchurian symbols all over the city, my friend, standing behind the Chinese guy, randomly started reading them out loud to the Chinese guy in front of us, who would thankfully nod. When he turned around and saw my friend, he was like, WTF. It was hilarious. Not crazy, but embarrassing. For speaker. I was on bus tour in Italy and at one hotel cleaning, forgot to replace towels in my room. I went down to reception to ask them to replace them. I wasn't angry because I saw that we were fourth tour bus to arrive there and there were at least 3 more pulling in behind us. That hotel was popular with tourist groups and I guess most of the tourists didn't speak Italian or English. So when I was waiting by reception for them to finish processing latest group of arrivals, one of the ladies saw me and spoke to her co-worker loud enough that I could hear them. I don't remember exact phrase, but she said rather rudely along the lines, "Here comes another dumb tourist. It is your turn to play pantomime with them." And then I ask in passable English about replacing towels in my room. My first language was Cantonese, but I grew up learning English, and I have no accent at all, and can speak both languages fluently. I work in cosmetic retail, and one night this 2 older white ladies came in. One of them approached me and asked for liquid makeup. To that I can only assume she was looking for liquid foundation. After all, it is a complexion based store. So I showed her out liquid foundation and a tinted moisturizer. As I was explaining the difference between the two, she kept saying I ask for liquid makeup, as if I didn't understand what she was asking for. In the middle of my explanation, she got very upset and said, "Can you speak English?" My jaw dropped and I looked at my coworker, who was also speechless. And she left the store with her friend and was like she doesn't know what she's talking about. Oh my gosh, something similar happened to me. So I'm prone to mumbling, and once I was volunteering at a library to check the conditions of the books on the shelves, and this older white lady came up to me to ask a question, but it was complex enough to where I didn't know the answer to, so I just pointed her out to the help desk. The thing is, I was mumbling since I had headphones in, and I was taught to keep quiet in a library, but because of that she couldn't hear what I was saying and asked I spoke English too. When she said that, I piped up and just pointed the desk out again. It's so embarrassing. Edit. I'm clearly a brown person because I have Pakistani heritage. I live in a really beautiful touristic city in Argentina, Alta Gracia. People come from all over the world here. Except Americans. I never ever see Americans here. I guess it's not the type of tourist that come here, so I never really heard someone say something in English thinking I wouldn't understand. What I also speak is a bit of Italian, and one day some Italian tourists asked me where the Central Plaza is. I guided them, and when they left they said this kid has a smear in his face, and indeed I had a smear. So I said back to them, thanks for the warning. I speak English since I was 5, but my first language is Portuguese. Once I was on the bus minding my own business when two tourist girls get into the same bus, both English. They look at me and start commenting on my hair. I had it shaved due to cancer at the time and how bad it looked and that I shouldn't be allowed outside because I was an eyesore. Edit. Spelling. Please subscribe, leave a like, comment and share the video to help the channel.